I always like to use the word, the sort of like the statement of being more human, because I think with brands, they should be more human because they're talking to humans. And when they're being a bit robotic or just trying to be a bit too cool and all this stuff, I find it a little bit, it's not necessarily cringe, but it's just bollocks.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jesse Nyberg podcast. Today I'm here with James from Studio Innate. Super cool dude. We've been chatting a little bit on Instagram. Excited to just get right into it and start talking to him. So how you doing today, man?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Just running around like a bit of a headless chicken at the moment, but
yeah, working on a lot of stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to, as I mentioned to you before, got a baby arriving like
congrats, man.
now. So yeah, appreciate it, man. So it's been a bit crazy because I've just been trying to get everything done. From this last month has just been like turning away work and finishing up work and just trying to get it done. Because the last thing I want to be doing is like having to reply to clients. My wife's in labor. I don't think it'll go down.
Or you have a baby crying like.
Yeah. So now it's like I'm in a situation now where it's like a lot of waiting around now. But just getting to this point, it's been like, right, cool. We're good to go now. But
do you think
how about yourself though, man? You good?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Been a little busy today. I'm actually gonna pretty much on Monday, I guess, or this weekend technically. I'm gonna start. It's pretty much freelancing like full time. So I just finished up my last day at my full time like daytime design job, which was cool. I mean, it's kind of a weird feeling. It's bittersweet in a way. Like I'm excited, but it's also scary, obviously anytime you give up stability like that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that as well. Like when I was in the situation when I was freelancing initially, when I was working for this agency before. Yeah. And it was like my first proper job. And I remember thinking like, shit, is this what the agency lifestyle is like? This is horrendous. Like I remember there was this, so I was working with this company and they would just like look at you just like just like with a pure look of filth if you were leaving like half an hour. Oh, sorry, if you're leaving on time. Like the earliest you could leave is like at least half an hour or an hour over time. And I was just like, fuck this, I'm off. And like I just remember like my attitude didn't really go down that well with them because I was just like, well, you're not paying me, I'm off. And I was just like, I'm getting stuff done. My work is done. I'm not just going to stay here twiddling my thumbs. And and I just remember it just didn't feel right. Like the stuff I was working on as well, because it was like my first job after uni. It was I was just doing all this stuff like designing like flyers for like old people's homes and stuff like that. And I was like, what am I doing? It just didn't feel right. And then I was just like, actually, it was when we had our first recession in the UK. Like we had a big recession, and they were like making everyone redundant at the time. And they were like, look, we're because you're technically doing my maternity cover.
Do you know what year that was about?
That was probably like 2010, maybe 2000.
Okay.
I think it was then, and and it was just. So they were like sort of getting rid of people and trying to lean down because they lost like a load of clients. So because I was doing like a maternity cover job, it was like it made sense. And I was like, look, I'm happy. I will go. And I went freelance and didn't look back at all. It's just like completely just so much better. Like just being able to pick and choose who you work for, like align it as well. Because I used to really struggle with being in the same place like Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. But then I got like a few arrangements where I was working at one place, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I worked somewhere else on Thursday and Friday. And it's just quite nice mixing that up. And just been able to work on like all these different projects as well. And I got so much more excited about the work I was actually doing as well. Yeah. Because of mixing it up. And then just like sort of jumping around between agencies and learning along the way, like what works as well for different agencies, because they're all different. Like all agencies have a different personality. So it's quite nice being able to go in there and pick the things that I thought were actually working quite well for them, and the things that I was like, I probably wouldn't do that. Right. So so that was my whole initial freelance grind.
Yeah, the agency stuff's like I worked at an agency over here in Los Angeles. I've spoke about it before, and I think it's probably the most you can get to like the industry was an agency, but as well as it was all like entertainment clients. So like movie posters and like Hollywood and stuff. So those two things are like, that's the double down of like, stay here till midnight, you know, because both those industries are very like grindy. And I would be there till, you know, it's like you were saying, if you left on time, it was like, what a piece of garbage. Like, why would you be leaving on time? Like, you're supposed to stay here. Because like even the ADs and stuff would be there till 8 or 9. So it felt like, oh, you're not taking it serious, even though we were there from already 9 to 6 or something. It's
like, and I mean, like, how does that make you feel as well? Like, do you feel like appreciated as a designer? You know, when you're being asked to stay that late. Like, I personally, if I wouldn't do that to a member of staff, I'm like, and I remember I worked at one place, and that was the turning point for me. Is when I was working with this place, they actually got shitty with you if you were working through your lunch break. They were just like, what are you doing? Why are you still working? Go and have some lunch. Go and have a walk around.
Yeah, like the opposite kind of.
And and I was just like, oh, what, really? I'm like, I'm used to kind of like cowering out like a naughty dog that's just been told off. And they were like, no, go for a walk. It's like, it's in the countryside as well. So like we go for these nice long walks around these fields and woods or whatever. And it's just completely the opposite approach. And I wanted to work for them and do better work for them. And I was so much more productive as well. And that was their argument. They were like, you were no use to us if you burnt out. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Like, as a creative, and you'll know this too, you have like a window that is like, you're piping hot and you're on fire and you're designing and everything's clicking together. Yep. And then there's like the rest of the day where you're kind of thinking about stuff. And I don't know, it's the same with you. Do you have like a hot spot that you just churn stuff out?
It's harder too, like you know, I spoke about this before, like especially with daytime jobs, you know, you can only do like the conceptualizing, like heavy creative work so many hours in the day. There's part of me that like, yeah, I love that like super exciting stuff, but I can only do that for like maybe half the time I could work on, you know, more like production stuff or whatever. Because it's easy to just turn your brain off and do like tasks that you can basically do in your sleep. But if you're not feeling it or you're burnt out, it's really hard to like have this discovery phase and like come up with new ideas and like really critically think, because you're like, you're not fully in it. So I think that's, especially with freelance, you have to really have, you know, discipline and like a lot of like willpower to like be able to do that without anyone telling you like, all right, at least this many hours a day, make sure you come up with new ideas or work on something for a new client. So I think like you've obviously figured that out. And I think, is that whole agency life, is that what made you really want to start creating like Studio Innate? Was that kind of the birth of that?
Yeah, so essentially, like I said initially, there were things that I was observing about the studio, about the sort of like agency lifestyle and what people were doing, and like corners they were cutting, and they were getting like substantial budgets, and they were just like, just make it look nice. And I'm like, what would you mean, just make it look nice? I was like, I kind of need a little bit more of a steer than just make it look nice. Like, I can do that, but what's the point? And then I just started, and then I was picking up a couple of clients on my own. And I just saw the difference when I could actually run some deep dive discovery sessions and actually understand from their mouth, you know, what it is about their business and how I can, you know, impact that. So I was like, this is just so much easier. There's hardly any amends, because I'm already there. You know, I've got an understanding of what it is that they're doing, because I'm able to ask them all the right questions. Right. Whereas when you're, you know, project managers have their place, don't get me wrong, but the message can get lost in translation a little bit. I think when you're not having that conversation with the client directly and understanding what it is that they like and what it is that works for their industry and their brand. So yeah, it kind of stemmed from that. I then realized that actually I could work with so much better. I was so much more proud of it when I was actually working them directly, and the clients were so much happier. So I always wanted to do my own thing. And the progression just worked in that way. I just started picking up clients directly like that. And then just slowly but surely outweighed the freelance work with direct client work. And
yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, and that's
kind of a double-edged sword, the project manager thing, you know? Like, I love a good project manager, not having to deal with like shitty clients, but yeah, you can lose a lot of the deep-seated like meaning behind what they really are trying to communicate with you. If this person tells you this whole origin story of their brand, and then a project manager just turns it into 10 bullet points and sends it over to you, it's different.
It's difficult. And I think it's quite intimidating as well, because you're going into a project without the confidence that you know what you're doing is going to work and they're going to love it.
Yeah.
You're just kind of stabbing in the dark a little bit. And I used to find that quite uncomfortable. Because, I want to give them their money's worth as well. Right. I want them to be really happy with it, and I want to be proud of what I put forward. There's nothing worse. Like, even with any project, even when you know that you've done something good and you just slide it forward to the client, there is always that thing in the back of your mind. You're like, oh, I hope they like it, and it's, do you get that as well?
Yeah, I do. And it sucks because like majority of the time, if you know you did a good job, you did a good job and it works out. But there's still always that like deep-seated fear, like I don't know if it's from being early on in design and like actually getting stuff denied and being like, this is shit, rightfully so, because it was. I don't know if it stems from that, but I don't think, like, I've talked to people anywhere from being in college working on freelance all the way to like 30-year veterans, and like a good 80-90% of them have told me something of that sort. It's like there's still that thing is like, you still want the validation, in the back of your head, like hopefully they love this, or you don't want them to go with an idea that like you're not in love with, because then you kind of that starts to build that weird like resentment, like, oh, now I'm working on something I don't even like anymore.
Oh, that is the worst. Yeah. And like, I've done that before. I've kind of promised like 3 to 5 concepts. And I'm like, I know that this is the one, but I'm like, oh no, I've promised them 3 to 5. So I've then got to cook something up that I'm not as confident with. Sometimes you actually get something that's better, but when you know that that's the right thing, and then you're just nervous that they're going to pick the wrong one. And that is another thing as well. What I'd really liked about, doing the studio thing and working with the clients directly was that, you could have that conversation and that pitch with them and walk them through your thinking. You say, like, I've done it like this because when I spoke to you, we had a conversation about this, 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 and this, and that works for you in this way. So here's
you can sell it to them more in a way.
And the concept, and then they can get behind it. And I think as well, because, it's important to remember that 90% of what you say is through your body language. And like, when I'm like super excited about what I pitch into a client, they feed off that, and they're like, oh yeah. And I think they really value it as well, that you're getting excited about their future success and their business. They're going to bounce off you as well. So it's just that one-to-one connection that I really like. And that's why I've done this whole studio thing. And I've definitely intentionally called it a studio as well, because I don't see it as like the agency thing. There's not like a load of people running around here. It's literally just me. And I scale up every now and again with, the right team in a little network that I've kind of built up over the years of all the people that I know that I can rely on and get jobs done. So it's I'd say that I'm kind of like freelance on steroids in a way. I obviously I'm sort of like steering the ship, and then I just scale up as and when.
I was going to ask you about that, because I've noticed a phenomenon in the past maybe 5 years that I've just discovered. This is, you see a lot of things online. Designers will either they go by themselves, or sometimes you see like a studio and it's almost like you don't know if they actually have a team, or it's just kind of like they're making themselves as like a company. It's really hard to tell like what's actually going on behind the scenes when you see, because you could easily just be James, like graphic design, and your website would probably look roughly the same, but calling it studio, I think it's an interesting thing, because it probably attracts like bigger clients, but at the same time, they probably think like you have this big team to help you, but you're just kind of there by yourself.
And if it did attract bigger clients, it would just be purely smoke and mirrors. The main reason, like when I was doing the freelance, I used to trade as my name. Like that was always my freelance, was on the invoice. It was James Collins Design. And then when like I said before, I was trying to outweigh the client work, the direct client work with the freelance work.
Right.
And then I had done that, and I was just taking on direct client work, but I was bringing in people to help me with the project. So I was bringing in like developers, SEO people, PPC and all that. all that sort of stuff. So I was bringing in all these people and copywriters. So there were like projects. There was like 6 people on certain projects that were all freelancing, and it felt a bit weird, presenting that work as my own name. Right. So it kind of so there was a guy that was working in here basically full time, but he was just freelance. And it just made sense that, because when a client would come in, I'd introduce them to the people, and but it was just my name on the door. It just felt a bit like I wasn't giving them credit for being part of the project. So it naturally did feel right at that point to go with the name, with a studio thing. So ended up rebranding in that way. And I think, it has helped with picking up the right type of clients as well.
Nice. And it gives them the credit, and they probably feel better about being involved because it's
part of the
like
team, and I would put that on the case studies as well. Guys, the people that were a part of this project, I'd credit them at the bottom of a case study as well.
Where'd the Innate come from? Like, what made you? I read a little bit about like the story on like the about, but kind of wanted to hear you speak on it.
Yeah, so essentially, with that, so I kind of given you a bit of a journey of my approach to work, in a sense, like trying to get to know people and understand them.
Yeah.
And what I was always driven by was that certain people, that everyone has like that little spark, and I would like to work with people that are following that little ambition of theirs. They were just good at it. So for example, I've been quite interested in your progress. Like you're completely skyrocketing at the moment, and it's because you're doing something that is natural to you. So it's like an innate gift that you have. Yeah. So I was like, I quite like the idea of that, and working with people and sort of teasing that out of them. Some people don't necessarily know that they have that natural sort of gift. And I quite like to poke around and like really give them that confidence and like a visual brand and like just something with a bit more meaning. Yeah. And I always like to use the word, the sort of like the statement of being more human, because I think with brands, they should be more human because they're talking to humans. And when they're being a bit robotic or just trying to be a bit too cool and all this stuff, I find it a little bit, it's not necessarily cringe, but it's just bollocks.
People aren't as dumb as these big corporations think, like you can see right through it.
Just be more human, and I've always thought as well, like treat people like you want to be treated yourself. And I kind of like to approach that with design as well, and just try and that's where the name came from, because it was, it was that whole innate thing, trying to find what works for that person. So, and when I say person, it's because the sort of brands I was working for were sort of lifestyle startup type brands, not necessarily big corporations, because that doesn't necessarily work in that sense, because you're not going to get that human side out of a huge brand.
Small businesses,
huge corporation. Sorry?
Like small businesses, pretty much.
Yeah, more. So I quite liked working with those, and that was where the name came from, and it just kind of stuck, and I just quite liked it, and it's fairly adaptable as well to different circumstances, but that's where it came from.
It's cool too, like I know it's like not the most important thing, and like even though some designers may think it is, it also just has like the way that it's set in like the sans serif, like it just has a nice like letter forms, like it's not too long. It looks like it feels unique enough to be like something memorable, but it doesn't feel like obvious, Some stuff can be a little too like on the nose, like modern studio or whatever, and it's just kind of like what you're gonna get. Studio Innate, it kind of has a little bit of that mystery, and that's cool that you spoke about how some people don't know that they have that innate gift or like potential locked away, and you're trying to go in there and like poke around and just unleash it, basically.
I love it. I love it. It's like I almost interrogate clients sometimes, when I'm like doing a discovery session with them, and they're just like, I'm trying to dig all this gold out of them. Yeah. And they're saying, oh yeah, well we're revolutionizing all this. I'm just like, the thing is, that's fine and it's really cool, but anyone can say that. Anyone can claim that they're doing this, or anyone can claim that they're doing that. Yeah. And it's quite nice to be able to tease out and just keep going at, just keep poking them until they say what you want. And there was like one discovery session I did with this sort of like independent it was like this company in London, and I remember I was like, there was like 6 of them there that I was doing this discovery session. I was on my own doing it as well, and I was like, this is intense. And it went on for like 7 hours. I just couldn't get anything out of them. Damn. I was just like, you guys are all, I think they were all mindful of what they were each saying and not wanting to, I don't know, say the wrong thing or something in front of the director. And it was just the toughest thing.
Very careful.
Yeah. And then we managed to strip it down, and then I got something in the end. But yeah, sometimes those discovery sessions can be a massive grind, but it's better than just pushing work their way that's not right, and then keep doing that until it gets right. You know, that's just such a longer way. That's 6 months.
Right.
Whereas if 6 hours, you know,
it's crazy how much
at the end
of
the day, but still you get there, you know, you just got to keep going.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it's just crazy how important that stuff is. I think is overlooked often. And like, even something as simple, because I've worked on projects that are smaller where I don't even know if we ever hopped on a call, right? Like, it's straight up just like we're on the same page already. It was kind of email, Instagram DM, maybe a one-off like quick thing, but it's crazy how much further you can get and how much you can learn just from like, I've hopped on a call for 5 minutes and it completely changed my mind on the entire direction I was going to go in, because they didn't tell me this, but on the call, just like he threw in like, oh yeah, but we definitely don't want something like this, like talking shit about some other brand. And I was like, well, yeah, that was kind of one of the directions I was going to go in, you know? So I'm glad just hearing you throw that out there is so important. It's like you said, it saves you months versus hours. You get through all that and you're good to go.
As well, you know, I think it really helps the client to trust you as well. If you're taking the time to just constantly ask them these questions, and and like I say, I'm not interrogating them, but it is close, because I won't give up. I will just keep saying, but why? You know, and it's like, just keep asking them these questions and poking around and questioning them. And then at the end, I'll try and summarize what they've said. And you know that they are thinking, this person's actually listened to me now. So we've both agreed that which direction we're going to go in. So I think from that point, you know, they trust you a little bit more. And that way you can try and that helps to filter out that project manager, that sort of micromanager client. You know, they know that you're on the job.
Yeah.
And they don't need to be pestering you and just saying, oh, actually, I think we should do this and I think we should do that. Because then I can turn around and say, well, actually, when we had a discovery session, we agreed that, you know, well, you mentioned that this was where you're going and this is what you're doing. This is what you believe. So that kind of feels a little bit off brand. Are you doing that just because it's cool, or, you know, so it's quite nice. It's a good way of doing it. And it's, you know, you get to know the client a bit more as well, because you spend that time with them and you're actually having a conversation. And like, this is the first time you and I have had a conversation. We've been speaking on, you know, Instagram or whatever. But it's just nice when you can actually speak to people properly and get an actual understanding of what that person's like and what works, you know.
Definitely. And that probably helps with, you know, returning customers and things, because they felt you on a personal level versus maybe other people are not. There's a more of a wall behind, whether it be technology or distance and like geographically or whatever. But so obviously as a small business, there's a lot of challenges that go into it just on the normal day to day. But can you take me a little bit through how you were affected by the past year with like COVID and everything?
Yeah, man. So yeah, absolute nightmare. And I think one thing that I noticed as well, when that was all kicking off, there were a lot of people that were like, yeah, our business is booming and, you know, we're doing this, we're doing that, and we've won all this new work. And I'm like, or also they were kind of saying stuff. I'm like, is that actually true? I'm like, I don't know about you guys, but I know that all of my clients have just phoned me up in the same week and said, we're going to have to put the ice on this project. And it's a domino effect, you know?
Yeah.
It's just all of these projects that I was working on came to a grinding halt. And I was like, oh my God, you know, I got a family to provide for, and I'm, you know, running my own little thing. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, this is just, you know, where from here? Where do we go from here? Right. And but I think the whole world was going through the same thing at the same time. And it's you know, and there was, you know, there was stuff that, you know, the government sorted certain businesses out with certain things, and and there were things that could tie along, and we weren't doing anything. We were just told to stay at home. That was the guidance. It's like, stay at home and watch Netflix. It's like, again, right, go on then. And it was nice. I know it's a bit of an unpopular opinion, but it was just really nice. Like, we got the luscious weather here in the UK, which we rarely get. And I was just chilling out in the garden with my little boy and my wife, and just feet up. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like, this is actually really nice. Yeah. Someone has just switched me off, because I'm quite hyper focused. I will just go. Like, if I get an idea, I just churn it out and I just keep going. So it was quite nice that someone like pulled the power cord out of me, and I was just like, oh, this is what it's like to take a bit of a moment. Right. And I was just chilling out in my garden, just whacked on about a stone, because I was just drinking beer in my garden and just enjoying the sun and just bumbling around. And it was during that time as well that I was doing, so I just started doing the Instagram thing last year. So on the 1st of January, I did the whole, I'm going to start that, the 365 posts. So I was doing that, and it was quite nice, because although I would have, quite a lot of time with clients usually on client work, it was quite nice being able to actually just work on those posts a little bit more and just play around with that. So I was kind of keeping myself occupied with design by doing that 365 thing.
That's good.
And then that just kind of, that was cool. I enjoyed it, because I never really, I'd always kind of wanted to be posting stuff on Instagram, but I never really felt like I had the right time or the sort of, so that was the whole reason why I set myself that 365 thing, because it's a challenge. And I was like, right, okay, I need to stick to this. I'm going to crack on and do it, find the time. It's like starting the gym, isn't it? You got to make the time. It's quite, and I'm terrible for this. So I can talk myself out of stuff. I'm like an expert at talking myself out of things. So
yeah, definitely.
If I'm like, my mate was getting me to run with him, and we were doing 5K every single day. And I lasted like 25 days, like these 5K runs. And oh my God, it's horrendous. And I was like, I'm on these runs and I'm talking myself out of it. And I said to him, I was like, I don't know how you can do this. And he's got a mind that he can just switch off and just keep going. Yeah. Whereas my mind is like, what are you doing? Go home and chill out. Why are you running around? You don't need to. So with the whole Instagram thing, I really enjoyed having that time, and just kind of focusing on that a little bit and just having a bit of fun with it. And it's quite nice, because all the stuff I post on Instagram is just stuff I'm just vibing off. I'm just like, I'll just post this. I don't really care what it is. It doesn't ever really have any meaning. It's just something that I'm just like chucking compositions about. And just having a bit of fun with it.
How you do it smart though, because you obviously have these products that you sell, and you're showing how they can be used well. It's different from sometimes if you have a product, if you're not really showing someone the potential it has, like you're almost like, it kind of goes back to your methodology of like your company, like you're unlocking the potential of like these different assets and showing like what all they can do. It's different from just throwing up, the big picture of like all the things, right? Like, oh, here's all the icons, or here's all the glow effects, or whatever you're selling. You're showing like proper like usage. And I think it's strong, because I see some of your stuff and I'm like, damn, like maybe I should buy those like those shapes or those glass things or whatever. Were you selling that stuff before Instagram, and then that kind of just propelled it? Or
so that happened really in the most organic way possible. And it wasn't ever, I didn't ever mean to do it either. It was just one of those things. So and it happened about this time last year. So I was doing the 365 thing, and I was going to do 365 posters, and I got into like 18 of them, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is boring. I just got really bored of just doing a poster. I was like, I can't just do posters for an entire year. So I was like, I'm going to break this up in a way that will work for me. So I did series. So the first series was poster. And then I think the second one that I went on to was a skate deck. So I did 18 skate decks.
Oh, okay.
And then I jumped onto beer cans, I think, from there. So I just kind of did it like that. And then I got onto, I wanted to do like a coach jacket. And I remember just going online, just trying to find like a decent coach jacket mock-up. And I couldn't find anything. I was just like, where is a coach jacket? mock-up. I was like, there's got to be something lurking around. I just couldn't find anything. So I was like, oh, bloody hell, I'm just going to have to make it. So I just made one. And then I was getting a few DMs from people and they say, oh, where'd you get that mock-up from? I was like, oh, I made it. And they're just like, oh, can you send it to me? And I was like, man, no, I've made it myself. You know, I was like, no, I was being a bit protective over it. And then I was also doing a bit of like, I was doing like some little time lapses of my work, throwing stuff together. And over that time, I've been building up like a little icon pack just to make my life easier. So I was just grabbing these shapes out and it's popping up on this time lapse, little flashes of this like sheet with all these vectors on it. And then that same thing, people were like, where did you get that from? Where did you download that from? I was like, oh, it's just my own thing. I've just made it. Oh, can I have it? I was like, no. I felt a bit weird about it. I was like, well, no, it's my little thing. It's just like someone coming in your house and being like, oh, that looks nice. Can I have that? You know what I mean? It's like, no, you know? And then I just thought, this is a bit weird. I was like, you know, if people want it, then maybe I could, put it up and list it and see if a couple of people want it. And if they want to download it, they can. So yeah, I posted a couple of mock-ups because I'm quite confident building like websites and stuff. So I just put a little store up, whacked a mock-up on there, and quite a few people liked it. And then it was just quite nice getting that feedback from people as well. Like, mate, thank you so much for this. Thanks for sharing it with us. And I was like, I mean, it surprised me how much I actually enjoyed sharing that stuff, and people being grateful for it and being like, this is really good. I'm really happy that I've got this off you. And and it's a bit weird because it's like your own little file. But when I started sharing those things, it was, it's just quite a nice feeling being able to sort of like help out, and it's quite nice to see people's work in it, like work using it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, and I just enjoyed it. It's quite satisfying to do, and just been sort of refining it. And, I'm like updating all my mockups all the time as well. And just like, I've learned new tricks or new things that make them sort of better and just enhance them. And just I don't just like upload something and then just let it, linger.
Right.
I'm like tweaking it and then re-uploading it, like just constantly improving it
and showing more of the stuff in use and all that, and like kind of.
I mean, and that too, and like with like doing stuff in use, that is always what I've ever done. There's nothing's ever changed with that formula. I've always been doing little recordings of what I'm working on. It just so happens that now I'm actually sharing those files.
Right.
But it wasn't ever the goal to do like an asset store. It's just kind of ended up being like that.
Right.
And then I also wanted to kind of bring a couple of people in as well. So that was another thing. So that was like a changing point in it as well in sort of like the direction of it. So I was having a conversation with my Ben, Origami Clone on Instagram. He's he's a good mate of mine, and we used to go to college together, and we just have a little catch up every sort of like 3 or 4 years or something. We're pretty bad at staying in touch, but when we do, it's like I saw him yesterday, so we've got a real nice.
That's the mark of like a good friend right there,
Oh, he's such a nice dude as well. He's like loveliest bloke, and he always just has me in stitches. He ticks all the boxes. And I was just chatting to him, having a catch up, and he's just like, oh yeah, how's stuff going? I was like, yeah, good, and we'd sort of like talking about the year, and he'd gone freelance during the pandemic and all of that. So he was telling me about this and that. And then I know full well that I could sell his products. And I'd started to build up a bit of a following, and people had been coming to the store to buy certain things.
Right.
So I was like, mate, I think I could sell some of your stuff. Like, if you want to get on board, become like a featured artist, I reckon I could potentially push these for you if you want to get on board. And he was like, yeah, man, let's do it. So we did like a little collab, and and it was popular, and he was like, yeah, I'm enjoying this. And then I gave him the first payout at the first month, and he was like, mate, this is spot on. You've totally like sorted me out, man. He's just like this, I've just made this pack because he just draws anyway. Right. So so I just gave him his little payout for the first month, and he was like, yeah, man, that's completely like sorted me out, because it's a difficult year,
right.
With everything going on. So and that again was another kick for me, because I was like, that felt good, having someone say, thanks so much, you've sorted me out. And I'm like, well, it's your work, man. I've just advertised it for you on my site.
Right.
And yeah, and it's kind of grown from there. I brought on a few more other artists as well, and it's always like on an invitation only basis. Like I get asked by a few people if they can list their stuff on my store, but I don't ever want to kind of do that because I feel like that's, like Creative Market is, it's a great place. There's loads on there, but if anything, there's too much on there. It's like
definitely
one of those shops. Like we've got this shop in England, UK. You probably don't know the name, but I'd imagine there are similar things over for you. And it's called TK Maxx. And you can be browsing through there, and you can. There's just loads of shit, But sometimes you can find something that's a beaut, and you're like, that's gold, right. And you're just rummaging through. And I find it's like that as well, like Creative Market and things like that. Don't get me wrong, great platform, and it's great that it's got so much stuff on there. But I didn't ever want to have just loads of stuff. I'd rather have like something that's more refined and a bit more niche. So people don't have to just rummage. It's a bit more, less is more in a way, a bit more kind of all killer, no filler type attitude,
Yeah, when you're making this stuff nowadays, then obviously you said that it was kind of organic to begin with. People were just digging what you were putting out, and they were kind of saying, yo, like hook me up with those little icons and whatnot. But nowadays, there's a lot of these different stores, and I feel like you've done a good job at differentiating, and bringing in those collabs probably helps as well to keep the style a little different. And how do you come up with new stuff nowadays then? Because now it's probably a little more like intentional, right?
Actually, no, I try not to. I try not to think about it too much. And, there are things that I'm working on. And I just try to read the audience in a way as well. Like, so if people are asking about stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, well, that could work. So the glass shapes thing was never meant to be a pack.
Right.
And I was like, just played around with doing that. I was just doing that on a couple of posters and just whatever, just a couple of designs. And then someone, a couple of people were just like, how did you do that? I was just like, oh, just, and I was like, oh, actually, this could be a product. If people want it, it's the same thing happening again with the whole Coach jacket mock-up and the icon pack. People were after that recipe. So I was just like, well, here you go. Link in bio.
That one's pretty popular too. Do you think that you're like partly responsible for seeing that a lot lately?
Yeah, and it's a weird one with that pack. Like it's a bit of a love-hate relationship because I'm super proud of it, and it's been fascinating seeing it just take off.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of, because I'm a bit of a feeler, and there's been a few sort of like things that have been a bit too, like the integrity of some people behind, sort of like some people have just downloaded it, broken it apart, uploaded a YouTube tutorial on how to create it. We're using my images as like advertisement, things like that. And just sort of like claiming, acting like they've come up with it in a sense.
Yeah, that's not good.
Which is fine. Yeah, people do that. I get it. But initially, I was like, didn't like it. I was just like, oh man, this is crap. I'm not really it's not really worth it. And then like seeing it getting leaked here, there, and everywhere as well. Like that got leaked hard.
Oh yeah, really?
And like having to issue takedown notices and stuff like that. And I was spending way too much time like going down these rabbit holes, like issuing legal statements and stuff. And I was like, spoke to like legal teams as well about stuff. And I was like, do I really want to be doing this? I was like, I can't be bothered with this.
All really for a design asset, at the end of the day.
Can't be bothered. And then you open up one and then you see another one and you're just like, oh my God. And it is literally like that whack-a-mole thing. It's like my child's toy. You hit one of these blocks and another one pops up and it's like, you hit that and it's like, oh, for God's sake.
I spoke with the dude from Black Market. He has a lot of similar stories to the sense of,
it's bad.
You can't even contain it at some point. And he said like you said, someone kind of reverse engineered it. He said that happened a lot after he released the like trash machine, like ink bleed text thing. Like a little bit after that, everyone was just putting up like that specific like distressed style version like on YouTube, and he felt like it's hard because it's like you said, that stuff's inevitable. I don't know how you're ever going to be able to contain It's like whack-a-mole, like you're saying.
And that's the thing as well. Like it has, like with the glass shapes one, that has become a trend, you know, and I'm kind of seeing it here, there and everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And that's, it's, you know, it's really flattering. And I'm like, really, you know, I'm like, yeah, this is really cool to be able to see that. You know, people dig it, you know, I'm like, that's, you know, it's really flattering. And don't get me wrong, I'm really grateful for that. And it's just one of those things that I personally wasn't prepared for, because I never really, like I said, set out to do the whole asset store thing. You know, it's not like my thing. I'm not like churning out all these products and thinking, what's next? You know, I'm just thinking, you know, what do I need? So for example, that lockup in motion pack, I don't know if you've seen that. Like,
it's cool.
So that's another example of that. Though I did a little collab with Matt Fowler from Order, and you know, we did like a little post together. I did like a poster, sent it over to him, and he animated it. And I was like, man, that is wicked. Just like seeing that come to life, I was like, this is really cool, just seeing this. And I was like, surely there are people like me that don't necessarily want to mess around with After Effects so much. I'm so much more in my element in something like Photoshop, where I can just design on the fly. And like with things like Cinema 4D and all these 3D platforms, you know, the finished work is so mesmerizing and it really draws you in. But I couldn't think of anything worse than having to design something that isn't fully like rendered on the fly. Does that make sense? You know, like all these wireframes and that stuff. And then you have to render it for like 5 hours. And then
you made a mistake or something and you gotta
my God, that gives me so much anxiety thinking about that. And I went down the sort of like Cinema 4D thing. I had a little play around with it for like a day and sort of like documented the process on Instagram as well through stories. I thought there's probably people similar to me that are going through it too. So I was like, you know, if I find something along the way, it'd be quite useful, I think, from someone who's learning to share that aha moment rather than necessarily break down like a really complex tutorial or something. You know, I find that can be a little bit daunting. And I was just like, what am I doing? I was like, I don't know why I'm messing around with 3D. It's not necessarily my thing. I'm more into like typography and, you know, textures and like apparel stuff. You know, that's more my thing. I don't necessarily want to make like an astronaut doing something in the middle of a urban jungle. It doesn't really, I don't have that shit going through my mind. You know, I'm not thinking about that. I'm like walking down the street and looking at the back of someone's jacket and thinking that looks sick, you know, or like seeing some type somewhere and just being like, nice. Or just like there's like old shitty signs with like the letters like peeling off. I'm like, oh, look at the texture and, you know, things like that. You know, that's what I'm getting excited about. So I'm like, I don't know why I'm messing around with all this 3D stuff. Like, I think it kind of came with the NFT sort of FOMO a little bit. I was super excited by that landscape. And I know you've obviously you've been involved with it as well. But I mean, what's your opinion on it right now? Like, where are you at? Are you doing NFTs? Are you still trying it?
I'm not like, I spoke about this pretty heavily with when I did that live podcast with Elliot. We were talking about how at the end of the day, I agreed with him in the sense that I don't know if I ever was really like a huge proponent of it. I just had like a deep-seated sense of FOMO seeing like all this stuff going on, you know. And then I am a believer to a certain extent in like Ethereum and crypto in general, but I don't know, every day I see new news about NFT and like see people making sales, see people not making sales, seeing people desperately like shilling every day. And I just like, I feel torn on it every day. Like some days I'm like, wow, this is cool. Like this is the future. Like look at this crazy collab. And then the next day I see a celebrity partnering with a corporation selling an NFT for like 50 Ethereum that some guy's going to buy and feel like rewarded somehow. But all it was is putting more money back into these big corporations. So I think the concept of it is pure. The intention is good, but it's like anything. It's just getting perverted by like all the greed and just weird. I just don't like the greed and desperation around it. Like, I think a lot of people, it's bad for mental health because they're seeking value out of like if someone wants to buy their work or not. But before NFT existed, they were fine just posting it on Instagram and having a good time, you know?
Yeah. And it's like that, for me personally, the way I see it. Like there's been some designers that have posted stuff and I'm like, that is sick. I hope they do well because that deserves it. And it's just no bids. And I'm like, what? And then there's people buying stuff that I look at and I think that's junk. And I don't mean any offense by that, but I don't look at it and think that's pure art, great work. And then I see other stuff. I'm like, that's so good. And it's not selling. And I just think if that was me and I'd uploaded something, and it, and that's it, when you, like I said before, with the whole like submitting your work to a client and you're always anxious about whether they're going to like it or not. And it's the same with that, but completely on another level. Like if you upload like an NFT, you spend all this money doing all these, gas fees and so on. And then it just flops. It just, oh my God, that would destroy me. I'd just feel like crap about it and just,
because not only are you not making money, you're losing money.
Sorry?
Not only did you not make money from the transaction, you actually are negative because you had to pay
to just flushing it down the toilet. And then you see in like all these other artists, they're doing great and they're doing like millions. They've made millions in like a weekend. You're like, what is going on? And I think, fair play to them. But I must admit though, that environmental impact as well, like that really shook me up and I didn't know about that. And then I got Nichols gave me a foundation invite and I'm like super grateful for it. And I kind of knew about the environmental thing. I'd heard it going around, but I hadn't necessarily looked into it. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's a hoax and this and that, whatever. But for me personally, I don't feel comfortable uploading something that I know I need to do my research and like go into this whole environmental thing. I know I need to do more of it. I watched a really compelling YouTube video about it. And obviously it's very biased, but it was quite compelling to not do that, And I just don't want like I say, I got a baby arriving any moment now. I got a little 4-year-old boy and I just don't want them to be pissed off with me in like 15 years. Because I know I'm pissed off of previous generations for the amount of shit they've done to the environment.
Industrial revolution.
And I don't want them to be pissed off with me because I was like, well, I just wanted to sell an NFT and no one bought it, but I did a humongous amount of damage to the environment in the meantime.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing. And I know there will probably be people listening now that will say, it's nothing to worry about with the environmental impact. But for me personally, I need to do that research before I can even consider doing that.
And I've heard, the biggest argument against the environmental impact isn't that it doesn't exist, but that it's existing and happening at such a rate without the NFT, like just the blockchain in general, so it's kind of a fallacy to say like, well, what does it matter? It's happening anyway. Like that's not a good argument, but at the same time, I do see the point because it's not like, it's like if everyone's shit, what's a little more shit? It's almost like that's the kind of argument, but I don't know. I think it's either going to take off and it's going to just become the norm like it seems right now, or something's eventually going to like burst and everyone's going to be like, what the fuck were we doing in 2020 when everyone was selling JPEGs?
And also with that in mind, like it's kind of like another reason why I'm not excited about getting involved in it because everyone is charging at it and it feels like a bit of a rat race. And I don't really want to do that. I'm just like, well, I'm quite happy just focus elsewhere and just do my own thing. And like I say, man, the FOMO was just outrageous. I was like thinking, oh my God, I need to upload all of my Instagram posts. And it's just the most ridiculous thing looking back, thinking that anyone would even buy one of my posts.
And my Twitter's ruined from it now. Why would anyone
buy that?
Everyone I follow, it's just NFT. Like I need to do a cleanup.
All of my posts, like why would anyone want to buy one of those? There's no meaning behind them. They are just things that I throw together because there's no client breathing down my neck. I'm just like, I'm just going to design what the hell I want. There's no brief. I just chuck some work up. I just play around with compositions. I'm like, why would anyone want to buy that? There's no purpose behind it. It's just stuff that I've just arranged, and I'm like, yeah, I like the look of that. I'll upload it. So yeah, I don't know. But there's some super random stuff that gets bought. So that is playing in the back of your mind, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
You purchase.
I mean, I think it's different too. Like, I think people just like the passivity of it in a way, like, especially if you already have the work completed, it's like, what's the hurt? But for someone like you, I mean, you got your studio, you have your asset store, which I'm sure it's not entirely passive because it takes upgoing work, but some of it, the upkeep and stuff. But having those things, I think would generate a lot less FOMO for me, because it's like, well, I got this, I got this stuff I've been doing right and the way that I do it correctly for years. So I think the people that feel bad, like, actually need the money, and that's why they're like seeing this and being like, this isn't fair. This guy just made $5,000 and I'm in like a third world country, and like, that's a yearly salary, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And, and that is it, like I say, the asset store is just the things that I kind of bumble around with on Instagram, just available, just like, if people want to buy it, they can. And it, like I say, it's been very organic.
Is it a big chunk of your revenue now though, or not really?
Yeah. I mean, it's nice. I mean, I still like doing the client work as well, because it's nice to have the best of both. And there are some clients that I'm working with at the moment, I'm like, off the back of the Instagram thing. So it's kind of like, now I shifted towards the Instagram thing. It's so much nicer because I'm actually getting the work that I want to be working on.
Yeah.
Before I was, because like I said, I started doing the whole transition from freelance through to a studio, and I got like SEO stuff done, but that's just going to attract local businesses. So I was like getting local businesses. And like I said earlier, I enjoyed working with those small startups and local businesses and little brands, and they're all sort of like lifestyle brands, and they were nice to work with. But it's not what I wouldn't design like something for like a lifestyle brand and post it on Instagram. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's not that sort of thing. But with the stuff I've been posting on Instagram, it's just what's in my mind. I'm like, yeah, I just putting this stuff together because I like it. I like the look and the feel of it. And now I've been getting some inquiries based on that type of work. And it's just so nice to be able to actually work on those types of things rather than just get something through from a local company and be like, shit, I guess I need to take this job on.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with me. It's like not my vibe at all, but it's going to pay the bills, And it's nice to be able to sort of turn a bit of those away now, because the asset store is sort of substituting that. So that's nice. That's nice so I've kind of replaced clients I don't want to work for in the nicest possible way. I don't mean any offense to them.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily my vibe. It's nice to be able to turn them away now, because I know that I'll just work on some products or whatever, and that will compensate for those particular projects. So that's been nice for that. Just doing that, really.
That's where I'm trying to get with like with this and other online content creation. It's not that I just want to be this strictly YouTuber podcast person. Like, obviously design is why I started all this, and I still want to work on freelance projects, but I would love to have the luxury and the freedom to turn down bad ones, because I know in the back of my head, well, at least this other thing will get me that monthly goal of like where I won't be broke, and it seems like a lot healthier for both your creativity and your mindset, because you're working on the things you like. You're not feeling, there's nothing worse than, creating something under the pressure of, if this doesn't go well, like, I'm not going to have any money, like that's never a good feeling. Even though we all make money from this, you want to feel comfortable. I was going to ask you too, what, I think maybe the glass shapes kind of answered that, but is that the best performing thing that you've sold?
It's a weird one, actually. Like some products do really well, and you just think, why is that one doing well? Mm-hmm. The lockup pack has definitely done
the first
really well.
One.
Yeah, and that's got the legs. So the second one, actually, Lockup Volume 2, that one's had legs, so that just keeps going and ticking along. And I literally use that all the time. Mm-hmm. That's got the legs, and I think that's the thing. Like with the glass shapes thing, that's a quick trend. I think it's done now. I think it's totally been overused, and it's had its time.
It's like the new plastic.
It's a quick flash. And yeah, and I think a lot of people feel like that way as well. Like I've seen like comments and people are, oh, this and that, you know, they're seeing it all over the place. And that's a quick trend. Whereas things like that, and there's like a long sleeve t-shirt as well that I did a mock-up of, and that just seems to sell all the time. And I'm like, what is it about that? I just don't know.
Yeah.
But I think as well, what I like to do with, you know, I don't necessarily just post a mock-up and it's just a t-shirt. I like to put like a design on there as well.
Right.
So again, it's like that, here you go, is something to get you started, rather than just whack your design on that, you know. And I kind of, because I'm posting stuff anyway, I'm just designing things, and for the daily post type thing, I was just like throwing a design on there as part of my daily post, and the mock-up is available, you know. So yeah, I did a bit of that, and I think that was quite that may help. I don't know, because you're kind of giving someone
context,
a bit of a steer. Yeah, I guess, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, but it is surprising, the stuff that does sell, and then the stuff that doesn't sell, you know.
Yeah. Do you ever get it? I'm sure there's been some things just like design work and like likes or whatever where you're all excited and it doesn't do well at all, and there's other ones where you're just like, whatever, long sleeve t-shirt, and it's the best thing, you know. It's weird how that works. Weird. Like you can never predict it.
Yeah, I mean, the glass shapes thing, definitely that flew, like in February, January, whatever, you know, that flew. And then it started sort of simmering down now, but it's I think it did in terms of it's definitely the best performing one in terms of hot off the press. Yeah. But in terms of, you know, the sort of the longer distance runner, you know, definitely a lock-up pack, I think, for sure.
Consistent just, throughout the time.
Yeah, that one has weight. And like I say, you know, now it's animated as well, and kind of bringing back around to when I mentioned about doing that collab with Matt. When, you know, bringing that animation side to it as well, it's just nice, you know, that just goes to show you can do that so much more with it. I mean, I remember Matt initially, that's how we got chatting, was because he downloaded the first product and then made some stuff with it. And I was like, you know, it's just so nice to see it animated, because I don't do that. Yeah. And it's nice to see what people do with it. And then obviously we was like, we should make this a product. Do you want to do a collab? And he was like, yeah, for sure. So so that's it. That's the first draft. And then we've got some other ones that we're going to work on as well in the future.
Nice. Who creates most of I saw a little bit of differing credits in the typefaces. Like, is that a mixture of you and other like freelance artists?
Yeah. So that's another thing. Like, I've always loved type, but I've never really wanted to create type. And I'm working with a guy called Remy as well, and I picked up his work. I found him on Instagram, and it was after doing that same thing with Ben, my mate Ben, who's origami clone. And it was just that nice feeling of, you know, being able to sort them out. And I saw Remy's work, and I was just like, I think your type's really nice. Yeah. And I said, you know, do you want to be part of the brand? You know, do you want to sell your stuff through the store? And he was just like, yeah, man, let's do it. So he chucked a couple of I selected like a few fonts. I was like, I think this is really nice. It'd be nice to use this. Yeah. And it was, you know, it was selling, because that's another thing. I'm doing these posts, I'm constantly advertising stuff. So I'm like, this font, and then listing what I've used in the post, and it's, you know, it's like an organic way of advertising it, really. So I was doing that, and gave him his payout, and he was like, here's a load of more fonts. And I was like, cool. And you know, that's been a good relationship. He's a really nice dude. And that's it. You know, it's just the same thing, you know, just building that up. Got a couple of other font guys doing stuff now as well. Nice. So it's been good. It's just been nice, you know. It's just like building like a nice little family, you know. And I know there's like these little there's these little niches and these little groups and whatnot, but I never really kind of get too involved with that type of stuff. But it's nice. I've kind of built this little family of these guys that are part of the team, you know. Yeah. It's similar to the service-based work that I do, you know, with like the sort of network that I have of like a developer and an SEO guy and all that. It's a similar type of approach, but other guys that want to add to it. So it's kind of coming back full circle.
That's good. Yeah. And I'm sure it feels great to not only have this successful business, but I'm sure that, like you already said, that feeling of someone being like, damn, like they knew their work was good, but you just showed it to more people, you know, and it just validated them and showed like, damn, people are actually liking these fonts or these graphics, and that must feel great giving them that payout. Because I was looking, I think the Remy guy designed it. I love that ultra brutalism like type, super skinny fonts. It's badass. Like that's one of the first things I saw on when I first discovered your thing, like that, the vector pack, and then I think the ink blade stuff, and I was like, damn, there's some cool shit on here.
Yeah, because you're banging to your type, aren't you?
Yeah, for sure.
That ultra brutalism one, yeah, that is right down your street for sure. The Hydra font was the first one I sort of had my eye on when I reached out to him. I thought that was a really nice font. And I've done quite a few posts with that as well, and driven some traffic that way. And I think as well, like especially with Ben, speaking to Ben, he's he's because I chat to him all the time. He's like, mate, love this, and I've used his pack for like a post, and he's like, mate, I love it. Like seeing what I like using his pack in another way, and I think it's just quite nice as well. Like, and that's what I get as well when I see people using like the lockup pack or anything that I've kind of done. It's just like, oh, it's nice that they've done that,
right.
Seeing how it's been used. So yeah, it's just that nice sort of organic growth as well, just doing it without forcing it. I'm not like spamming loads of people and being like, oh, can I say your stuff? Can I say your stuff? And it's just like chatting away to people casually and just being like, yeah, I think that's cool. Do you want to be a part of this? And it's just nice having those, just having those casual conversations.
And it's like a mutual respect, it's not you begging them and it's not the vice versa, it's a good relationship that's like healthy and benefits both parties overall, really.
Yeah, man, for sure. And it just feels nice that way as well. Less salesy, just more like like a friendship vibe,
right? That's awesome.
Yeah, and they're all like cool guys, it's just nice to have them on board. I did some work for a client recently as well, and I just love their whole thing. And they're like an animation company, and they just said, I was just like trying to figure out what it is about them, and they were talking about this type of staff that they have and their whole sort of like internal brand ethos. And they're just like, if you're a dickhead, you're out. It doesn't matter if you're really good at your job. If you're a dickhead, you're off. We don't want anyone like that. We'd rather have someone who needs to learn that's really sound and, work with them and build them up rather than just have some hothead, and I love that. I love that. So it's all about, like I say, just treat people like you want to be treated yourself, just having that respect and just being in good company, and they're all really cool, really talented people. And I'm just like brushing shoulders with them, really.
Nice. Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think that's a good spot for to go out on here. But one more last thing I wanted to ask you is, do you have anything exciting coming up for the studio? And just go ahead and plug your stuff as well.
Man, I would love to. There are two projects in particular that I'm working on, and I don't want to get in trouble because the amount of documents I've signed.
No worries.
But I'm super excited with that. And it's a really, really big client. Definitely the biggest one that I've worked on. But I can't necessarily say what it is. But one thing I did do when they first got in touch, I was like, I'm just going to have a little look into this. And I remember I copy and pasted the address in the email signature, and just find out where this business is. And it's in Times Square, this massive skyscraper. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is a big dog. I was like, bloody hell. And it's been really cool working on this project with these guys for the last few months. And that's why I've kind of like quietened down a little bit on my posting on Instagram, because I've been focusing on that quite a bit as well.
Yeah, good for you though.
But that's a really cool one. So hopefully I'll be able to announce a bit more about that soon.
Nice.
And and then there's another one as well, which again is one I can't really mention, but it's for a particular artist. And we've been discussing this project for about a year and a bit now, but because the music industry just came to a grinding halt, they've just like axed so many budgets. So we've just been like, they're just not ready to do this project yet. And every time we just have a catch up every quarter, like, how are we getting on? We're ready to go. And they're just like, not quite yet. We're just waiting for this.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I just want to do this job because it's like an artist that I've been into for so many years. So that would be really cool.
Nice.
So hopefully that sort of stuff I'll be able to sort of tease out soon. Because it'll be a proud moment for sure, big time. But yeah, until then, I can't really plug anything annoyingly.
Yeah, all good. Well, other than that, I mean, you got a lot of new products up in the shop. It looks like you just had that new jacket, the mock-up with the model. That's really cool. And everyone definitely check out James' stuff. So is it just Studio Innate on all? Is that everything?
Yeah, so all that, to be honest, I'm mainly just active on Instagram. You know, I know I kind of bumbled around on Twitter with you guys for a little bit, but I don't go on there. I just I can't keep up. And,
so Instagram and the website.
And then you know, shop.studioinnate.com is the store, and it's separated that out from the main business website because it all used to live on one before, and that was just a bit of a bit hectic. But
cool.
So all the asset stuff's on there, and that's mainly where I'm at the moment. And and on Instagram.
Cool. Well, go check them out. Go buy some stuff. A lot of cool shit. And if you want to hear a little bit more, go over to the Patreon link below. We're going to do a little Q&A, go over a few more things. And just want to thank you again for coming on. Appreciate it, man.
My pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure.
All right. Peace out, everyone.
Cheers, man.